Things were wonderful. It was as close to perfect as perfect can be. It was surreal. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was living in a fantasy. It seemed like the image on your screen is what people see usually at the beginning of a wonderful relationship. It's like a paradise with everything you want on it. Crystal clear waters, weather's always just right, just enough shade to the sun, food always there, delivered some way, somehow that you never really figure that out, but they always got what you want. That's what most people see. That's what most people assume a good relationship is. It's wonderful. It's seamless, stressless, smooth. That was the first sign. That was the first sign, for me at least, that something was wrong. This is a crossover. Let's get to it.
Put some respect on my name. You understand me? When y'all saying my name, put some respect on it.
Hello, welcome to Crossover. Late night, of course, as always. Pre-recording. Trying to get this out. Hopefully, you don't hear the crunching in the background from the munchkin. But I'm about to do a bit of a reflection now. So as you know, I have been reflecting upon myself, reflecting upon my prior relationship, um, improving constantly. Again, if you saw the last broadcast, even more people like it's, saying that, I slimmed down, I look slimmer, all that stuff. It's amazing. It's gotten to the point where, I mean, don't get me wrong, I appreciate that people have seen that I've made changes. The most notable being that I've, I guess, lost the weight that I had gained in the last 2 years. So I appreciate that. But it's gotten to the point where it's kind of weird. I don't know, like, I guess that's a good example, kind of what I'm talking about. But when it pertains to the reflection here. So people see paradise when they're in a good relationship. And I'm not going to lie, that's how my relationship started. I can say the first year was flawless, absolutely flawless. I'll probably talk about this later as I dive more into the crossover next year. Because remember, there's some things that I can't say until then. But yeah, it was seamless, it was flawless. And to be honest, that was actually one of the first red flags that I had gotten. That was the first sign to me something wasn't right because it was so surreal. I'm like, there's no way, you know, first go round, I just hit it out the park. Like there's no way this like I was reasonable as I always am. I'm a reasonable, logical person, and to be honest, it's not that I was hoping things would go wrong. It's just that it was so seamless. It was like effortless. It seemed. I was like, I mean, if this is how it is, if this is how, really. easy things are in a relationship. I was like, I mean, I don't see how people like I that thought actually crossed my mind. I was like, I don't know how people can't figure this out. Like this is easy. Like I was like, oh wow, this is wonderful. This is great. And I'm not gonna lie, part of me, I was, don't get me wrong, I enjoyed myself. I was enjoying every moment of it. I was, but there was that little bit of discomfort because I was like, okay, when's it gonna happen? When is something going to happen? Because you always hear about the common stuff, at least from guys. We always hear about the bullshit that females bring up in relationships, the bickering, the insatiable desire to always having to do crap and get them stuff, and eventually the narcissistic tendencies. We always hear about that, and for the first year in that relationship, I will say, at least for the first 6 months, at least, there was nothing. And then for the first year, if there was something, it was it was so minor that I barely noticed it, right? And I'm not gonna lie, like it was great. It was like that. It was like that island paradise you're looking at. You were there, and then you had to go take care of some business, and then you're always like just looking back at that your moments at that island, and you're like, oh man, how do I get back there? And then you go and try to book a ticket, and then you find out, oh hell, the prices then went way up, and you're kind of like, okay, something fishy going on here, and then you just can't really get back there, and then it becomes impossible for you to get back there because every time you go back to work and you try to save up to go back to that island, the prices keep going up, and then eventually you figure out it just wasn't meant to be, or it was one of those things where it was too good to be true, right? Because then inevitably shit things go to shit eventually. So management changes, they fucked up the island for whatever reason. I see it more like an analogy for me, since I am a creature of the night. It's like a swan in a lake of darkness. There is that mystique there. Have you ever been on the ocean at night? You're just surrounded by nothingness. And then, like, that still water. And then the only ripples you see is from the swan glowing in the moonlight. And it is just beautiful. You have no way of knowing how to get to it other than to dive into that ocean or that lake. But you're not sure what's in the water. We have I actually do believe we do have a natural fear of such things because we know things can be lurking in the water. It could be a crocodile, a creature of some sort. It could be something as small and minute as an amoeba or something like that, that can cause you severe harm. You don't know what it is exactly, but all you do know is that is beautiful. You don't want to disturb it, but you do. It's like you want that swan. You want to be with that swan. You imagine yourself just kind of caressing that swan and the swan caressing you and then swimming gracefully. You want that. You might even feel like you need that. But part of you is just like, it's just out of reach. There's, you know better than to jump in that water. Even if the swan were to avoid you and fly off, once you do that, it's just like you don't know the dangers in the water. That's what it's like to me. That's what it was like to me. And to be honest, I was okay with that because I knew relationships weren't perfect. No one's perfect. I knew there were going to be problems. And to be honest, now I'm self-reflecting because I always wondered of what it was it about that relationship that always that allowed me to overlook things that I even knew weren't right, and to give out, hell, what, two or three additional chances that weren't supposed to be given. And I recall that moment, that bliss at the beginning, and also my understanding that there would be some issues to overcome, and there are supposed to be in relationships, but you can also misinterpret things. You can make misdiagnose things. They can have same symptoms, completely different meanings, completely different reasons, or causes. So when I reflect upon that relationship, I was in college. I want to say right around the time when things got rocky. Right around the time things got rocky, that's when I had went through a depression. I was being overwhelmed. My view of the world itself was, I can't even say altered. It was literally just destroyed. I was naive. I believed there was more good in the world than bad, or at least it was possible. And I was alerted to just how wicked things had been historically, and as time was going on, and even now, things that I know now that I didn't know then. So I was naive, extremely naive. Innocent, though, but still naive. And I was going through that moment where that naiveness was being stripped from me, forced from me in an unpleasant way. I just thought it was so easy to fix the world. I saw so many problems and I was like, oh, that's an easy fix. And then I find out that problem is there for a reason. It's meant to be there. And then if you dive down that thought process into like, well, why is that? And then inevitably you see something you don't want to see. And that's the wickedness of people. That's what I was going through. It just so happens at the same time, the issues in my relationship decided to blunt their ugly little head at the same time. But I was ready for it. I was actually prepared for it. I was actually looking forward to it. I was like, okay, great. This is that moment. Okay, cool. Let's overcome. So yes, I was going through a depression, but it wasn't at that time, at least, it wasn't bad enough to where I wasn't still able to do what I needed to do in life and in my relationship. So issues started finally occurring. I was like, okay, cool. So everything isn't as blissful and wonderful as I thought it was. Because I'm not gonna lie, I was a little bit off put because that's how good it was. I was like, okay, this some just doesn't seem right. Like it's too good. So things started happening. I was like, okay, cool. Issues. We're gonna go. We shall overcome, right? That's how you're thinking about it. So get through that. Cool. Get back to a little briefer moment of that blissfulness, and then of course a little more problems. I'm like, all right, cool. This is life now. All right, the fantasy phase has worn off of the relationship. This is life now. And then more depression as more of my naivety was raped from me, and I guess that relationship, I want to. Part of me probably. I'm not even gonna say probably. Part of me wanted to hold on to that part of the relationship because for the first time I thought I had someone that actually was on par with me, as in like how I viewed the world. what I wanted to get out of the world, what I wanted to contribute to the world, that type of thing. Um, I've said this in prior broadcasts. She was the female version of me. And there's no better feeling than that. I could finish her sentences and she mine. Like that's how it was. And looking back on that, I'm starting to kind of realize, like, yeah, it was a learning moment. Yeah, the depression most likely did have an effect on me being willing to tolerate stuff that I knew better than to tolerate. I literally had to quiet myself. Like there was that part of that part of me that was literally telling and screaming at me like, "Hey, something's not right here. This isn't right. You're going against your own, you know, rules here. Why are you allowing this person to? You're breaking the rules for this person. Why?" And then I was just like, hey, chill out. I'll make an exception here. So I made a lot of exceptions. Not, well, I won't say a lot. But I made a few exceptions, a few key exceptions, and that allowed the relationship to prolong for as long as it did, for sure. Because if had it been any other person, had it just been any other chick, if things weren't so blissful and wonderful in the beginning, and it was just regular, yeah, we definitely would have broke up way back then, and I never would have went back. It was just that simple. If we didn't click as well as we did, it would have just been another relationship. So I I acknowledge being tested is part of the relationship. It's part of life, to be honest. And that's why when I was going through some of the things I was going through in my prior relationship, that's why I was okay with it. That's why I was okay with some of the exceptions because things were so easy and flawless in the beginning. I was like, okay, this is just the back end. There's balance. That's what I was assuming. But then as things prolonged, like to now, like the last 2, 3 years was completely different from the first 2, 3 years. It's completely different. Similar symptoms, completely different. Especially knowing what I know now. So yes, there's the little issues, especially when you're dealing with women. Women are insatiable. There's going to be those issues you're going to deal with. She's always going to want more, not need more necessarily, but she's always going to want more. So I'm like, okay, I'm much better at managing that now, which was why when I was starting to see some of the issues resurface, and I was like, okay, well, let me go ahead and take care of that. And then I was realizing, okay, much like you kind of like you misdiagnose something, you diagnose it, you think you know what you're doing because you're like, oh, I've seen this before. And, doctors can probably relate. Oh, I've seen this before. You diagnose it like you normally do. You're like, oh, this is just one of those symptoms. And then you figure out, and then all of a sudden, the patient comes back, and it's like the problem's still there, or it got worse, and you're like, well, wait a second, okay, something's not right here. And then you kind of reassess it again. You're like, okay, yeah, this is definitely looking like what it is. I literally prescribed what needed to be prescribed, and then you could do one of two things. You can do the same thing you did before, and then hope for the best. Okay, this is definitely looking like what I thought it was the first time, so let me give the same prescription and see if it happens this time. Or you can assume that you're wrong and you're like, okay, I'm missing something here. Do a little more probing, re-diagnose, see if there's something you're missing. Look up something that maybe it's just you're looking at the wrong symptoms, or maybe the symptoms are similar, but it's a different disease, illness, complication. You can do one or two things. And or you can just, well, the third one is you just ignore it. So, or you just lie to the patient and try to ignore it. You can also do that. So actually, it's three things. I'm sorry, but from a reasonable person's perspective, it's one of two things. And this time, I diagnosed it. I put the plan in motion. I'm thinking I know what I'm doing because I'm much wiser now than I was then, and the symptoms didn't get better. They actually got worse. And that's when I was like, okay, this is different. The issues in the relationship now are much different. The circumstances of the relationship are also much, much different. I now have a child. I'm now married. And I also was aware that those are two leverage positions that women definitely, if things could go wrong in a relationship, they will definitely go wrong in that moment of the relationship. Meaning, if you're dealing with a woman who you've been dealing with her, I like to call it her representative up to that moment. The moment she has leverage, and this is also true in a lot of in many relationships, to be honest. So it's not just with dating; it's in all relationships. But if you're just dealing with that person's representative, in the beginning, first impressions, you always want to appear your best. You want to give the first good impression, right? But you're dealing with that person's representative in the beginning, and in a relationship, especially with a female today, all women know how to get a man. They all know it. That's why they all act the way they act in the beginning. That's why guys even deal with them. It's just we know that eventually, as the relationship goes on, the truth comes out. The true being comes out. The contempt, the recalcitrant behavior, the hell, the damn near borderline misogynistic behavior. Like, women today are let's say misogynistic. I meant misandrous. Um, because the whole womanism, feminism stuff, which all women, ironically, all women will it's like they all own up to it now, because now all women will tell you, "Oh, I'm not a feminist," because they all know what that means. Because pretty much feminism is essentially akin to misandrous. It just is. Um, they essentially just hate guys. You know, they hate whatever the dynamic is, the power, the for whatever reason. It could be for trauma reasons. Usually, it often is for trauma reasons. But yeah, that's literally what it is. Which is why all women will tell you, "Oh, I'm not a." They'll hurry up and tell you, "Oh, I'm not a feminist," for not because of the whole women's rights things, but because they know it's feminism today is misandry. So that's why that occurs. But there's a additional part of that, which is also when you're having sex with a woman. Um, that can also be a levering position, but that's not as solid as locking a dude. They call it the trap a nigga baby. Locking a dude down with a kid, which is what women do. Um, Especially if you do it. Shout out to single moms out there. Especially if you do it outside of marriage. The proper way to do it is actually to get married first, because that shows the guy actually committed to you, and then you get pregnant. But of course, women today know that most guys tend to take their time when it comes to marriage, and we know not to rush into that suicide pact. So the women, if they have a feeling, which mind you, emotions, if they have a feeling that things might not go as planned, meaning she would like to be married first, but if she has a feeling things might not go as planned, she'll try to force the issue. And one of the ways that women try to force the issue is getting pregnant. And they will try to make it seem like it was an accident, and it absolutely was not an accident. She absolutely wanted to get pregnant. So that's how that goes. And they have to make it seem like an accident, because all guys are aware of the trap a nigga baby. So if she can at least feign ignorance, it'll kind of ease that over at least. Oh my goodness, it was just an accident. It happened. Okay. Well, we're a family now, so we should go ahead and get married. So you see it now. Now it kind of. So now I have to. You know what I'm saying? Now it kind of goes down in that direction. But no, don't be naive. All women have absolute control over whether or not they want to be pregnant. I mean, Jesus, you can do things before, during, and after pregnancy to prevent having a child, literally. So there's plethora of ways to do it. And yeah, so if she gets pregnant, it's because she wanted to get pregnant. Um, so let's get rid of that naivety. So there's no getting around that. If she wanted to, she definitely wanted to. Now, one of the reasons why they think that sex, like the more sex you have with them, JB refers it to it. If you have sex with a woman, she really believes that you owe her, and that is true. So they think that's levering. That's a levering position, because you have to think of it from the perspective of a female. The first men women deal with in an intimate relationship outside of their father. And when I say intimate, I'm not talking about just sexually, but sexually intimate relationship. The first relationship, hopefully, it's not their father. Jesus Christ, hopefully, it's not the case. But the first relationship, sexual relationship, is usually a beta. So young men don't have the confidence or the accolades. Um, Actually, let me reframe that: young males, because they aren't men, do not have the proper accolades or the title of man. They're boys. They're young men. They're males. They're not fully developed. So they take on, everyone. No, everyone doesn't start as an alpha. That's not true. An alpha is a position, a title that is attained through efforts, and it requires effort, wisdom too. But so naturally, beta. That's what they deal with at a young age. Um, when she's in her 18s, 20s, she then starts to sexually deal with those betas, and then that's when she realizes, oh, she has some level, or to her, in her perspective, she understands, ooh, my sexuality has some leverage with these guys. Now, if she's smart, she understands that she doesn't actually have to have sex with all the guys to get um, benefits from them. And that's actually why women tend to leverage their sexuality. They dress a certain way, especially today. Women today are dressed extremely sexually provocative, extremely. But women today are freer than ever. So we're getting a view into female nature as it is in its purest form today, more than any time ever. So yes, this is how women are. Their sexual activities, STD rates, bastard children, all time high. Women have way more sex than guys on a regular basis, all time high. We're seeing how women are naturally. No, they didn't learn this behavior. That's just it's part learned, but it's also part they also desire certain things out of life. So, and then sexuality is one of those things, those tools. Remember the whole thing about getting something for nothing is kind of at the root of all that. So their sexuality, like they're literally born the way they are. So guys are sexually attracted to them. So naturally, guys who want to have sex, i.e., the betas, they'll do whatever they got to do to try to get sex. That's why I said women deal with betas at the beginning, and some women actually tend to like the taste of the betas, and they continually deal with those types of betas. But they inherently they crave masculinity, and the masculinity comes more specifically from the alphas, not the betas. But because she's like, okay, I can get over on the betas easy. Like, he just wants to have sex with me. I know he wants to have sex with me. Hell, she friend zones dudes, and she learns that way. Like, oh, I actually don't have to have sex. Which women lie about that shit. All women know there's no such thing as a platonic relationship with a guy. You absolutely know if you threw that butt at him, he's trying to get at you. You know this. We all know this. They know this, which is why they try to verbally, um, even sometimes personally cuck the guy, but they try to verbally let them know, like, oh, this is just my friend. We are just friends. But one thing that they will never or do not say, because they know better than to say or do that, is they won't straight up tell that guy, oh yeah, we're just friends and we will never ever have sex. I am not at all sexually attracted to you ever. And the reason why they don't do that is because they know one of the reasons that guy's even there is because at some point he's assuming, or he's thinking, I might have a chance. And so they know this. We know this. And that's why I said, now that's a strong ass beta. I'm not gonna lie. A guy that's willing to get friend zoned for an extended period of time, that's a strong ass beta. So strong beta. But that's why they tend to try to leverage that sexuality. But then there's the alphas that know better than that, and sex is not all that. To us, yes, it is part of the relationship, but at the same time, that doesn't give you any kind of leverage over me. So you can stop that noise. And that's why, like, there was some of that in my relationship. Had to deal with that. had to take care of that. One of the first things I actually did in my development was conquer that part of me. So before I had sex, I was a willing virgin till I got to college. I did make the decision to when I decided that I wanted to be sexually active. It wasn't on a whim. It wasn't some emotional like heat of the moment type thing. No, I made the willing decision. Hey, I am now open to having sex. I mean, I didn't verbally have to do that, but I was like, you know what? The next chick I deal with, I'm okay opening that door. So, but I had to make sure, like, I saw how the betas around me were acting, which most guys today are betas. Shout out to single moms, but most guys today are betas. So I saw the betaism around me, and I was like, guys will do some stupid stuff just for the opportunity of sex. Not even sex itself, but just the opportunity, the perceived opportunity of sex. And that's when I was like, okay, I have made an effort to conquer that, to conquer my sexual desires, because it is strong when you're young, extremely strong. Your desire to want to be with a woman, an attractive young female, and mind you, you're 18, 19, 20 years old, and you're around a bunch of hot little tight 18, 20-year-old females in their physical primes. I mean, as young and as pretty as they're ever going to be in their lives. Like, that desire is extremely strong. So I made an effort, I made a conscious effort to conquer that part of me. And I succeeded. And I was able to control it. And it didn't control me. I didn't make any stupid decisions because of it. In addition to that, I made some other changes as well. One of them being friendship. Um, but I'll have to talk on that in the next one. I don't want to hold this one up too long. I want to kind of let that one digest for tonight at least. But I was looking forward to overcoming the issues in my relationship. It's just later, present time, the last 2 years, there was a misdiagnosis. I understood there was a misdiagnosis. So that's when I had to understand. I realized, okay, I gotta go right back to the drawing board. Did a lot more research, a lot more probing, and some diseases you just gotta do what you gotta do. Some require amputation, some are terminal. So in this situation, it differed from the prior issues. It was not just the regular, ups and downs in a relationship. No, this was a full blown stage 4, whatever the worst type of cancer you can think of, you know. And to be honest, just the only real reason you're trying to manage it or trying to minimize the damage is really because of the child. That's really the only reason. Because if it weren't for the child, you would have just was like, yeah, this is terminal, just cut it all out. But imagine it's terminal, but it's like on some vital organs that you can't just cut it out. So that's kind of where it was. That's where it was. Um, some of the issues you can talk about. There's this thing, and this is these are some of the signs that I realized why it was different. There's this weird thing that happens. I don't know if it's just with married guys, but it's definitely because I talked to some guys that were divorced too, or were married, or they had friends that were married. And there's this weird thing that happens with women. You can actually look it up, but it's called like I don't know if it's specifically called that, but it's like roommating. So mind you, this is like your spouse. This is your wife. Some cases it might be a girlfriend, a living girlfriend that you've been together for some years, right? But there's this weird dynamic with females when things are about to implode, and there's this roommating effect, and she treats her spouse like a roommate. And one of those things is, now mind you, you could have literally seen this woman naked in every single position you can think of. Like, I mean, there's nothing to hide. You know every orifice of this woman's body. And imagine like your spouse getting out of the shower and they're covering their naked body, and then you realize they're covering their body from you, like you're a guy that they don't want to see them naked, like they're exposed, like they're like truly nude. Now, mind you, prior to that weirdness going on, they would walk around you in their underwear and or naked all the time, because mind you, you've seen them naked. Like, it's kind of like normal, actually. It's gotten a little too normal, but like, yeah, you've seen them, you've done stuff to them. If we can just be honest here, like, yeah, there's literally nothing to hide. You're actually completely comfortable, sometimes too comfortable with this person, right? But then you kind of notice, okay, this person is making a conscious effort to hide their naked body from me. This person is making a conscious effort, when you're in bed with them, you share a bed, to make a barrier between the two of you, so that there is no, to like make a barrier, or to prevent sexual activities from going on. And then it's like reverse friend zoning. It's like someone who has exposed the deepest part of themselves to you, and then they're trying to reel themselves back in and away from you. It's like reverse friend zoning. So eventually you're like, they're trying to friend zone you, even though you're in a relationship with them. You've done things with them. You've talked about things with them. And that's one of those, well, one, if that does happen to you, um it tends to happen from the females. From what I'm aware of, it's a female thing that happens, which of course it's hard for women. That's why, you judge people by their actions. It's actually, um, I give credit to women on that, actually. Yes, they verbally lie all the time. Yes, they will act and have that representative, when they want to put the charm on you, but it's actually hard for women to really hide their true nature. And if you're really looking out for it, it's there. It's actually hard for people in general to hide their true nature, but guys tend to, we tend to temper our emotions a lot better, because that's how we're trained and raised. Um, but women, on the other hand, they're kind of free and willy nilly with it, especially today. Remember, women are as free and as ever today. So this is them in their purest form, or as close to it as possible. So there's that part of her where she has disconnected from you on an emotional level. For whatever reason, she no longer sees you as her alpha. And oftentimes, not always, but I will probably say most of the time, she has another alpha in mind already, if not already dealing with another alpha. Because women can only really submit to one man. That's why that whole poly thing, where you have a woman with multiple husbands, is like bullshit. She's really just using both those guys. She doesn't really, it's not real. And plus, both those guys are beta as hell. So we already mentioned how women desire the alpha, and she's not going to be happy with two betas. I mean, yes, she can try to morph together a Frankenstein guy, but remember, it's a bunch of betas, and neither of those guys, maybe one, because he's so damn beta, will, but neither of those guys is really going to sacrifice themselves for her, because the moment that they get something of substance, they'll go on to try to, hell, they'll even cheat on her, to be honest, because they'll go on to want to get their own, because they're literally sharing that woman. And they're like, okay, the moment I get some damn resources up under me and I have the ability to get another decent enough chick, oftentimes younger and more attractive, he taking it. So but the problem is, he lacks the drive, or whatever, for whatever reason, he lacks the drive or ability to do that. So therefore, he is where he is as a super beta. So when it comes from that emotional part of women, it's harder for them to do something that they're not used to doing, to tempering their emotions, which actually that's a sign of a very, very, very good woman. Is a woman that is now it's not going to be like a guy, because remember she's a female, the feminine estrogen. That's actually a natural part of that, but she's able to temper her emotions to an extent. She's able to express, or naturally she understands the benefit of being selfless, because selfishness is inherent in all women, but it's actually the selfless mom and female. It's the selfless woman that men truly desire, that men actually truly crave. Some women will act the part, mind you. Remember the representative I was talking about, but it's hard to fake that for an extended period of time, especially for a woman, because remember, the emotions are going to show. So when she's doing that friend zoning thing, which is technically what that whole thing is, it's kind of like a friend zoning. Now, mind you, you're with this woman, you've been with this woman, you've been taking care of the house as the alpha, right, in that relationship. She still wants you to do all the manly stuff, pay the bills, all that stuff. She wants the benefits of all that. It's just now she also now wants, or if she already doesn't have the freedom of, or if she already hasn't, found another alpha. Because that's oftentimes what it is she's found another alpha and she's already submitted to him, whether it be another man or herself, her own ordeals. Remember the selfless woman? Well, if she's a selfish narcissist, vanity is at its all-time high. Um, she could submit to herself, as in her vanity, her own vanity, and then that could potentially lead up to that similar reaction in itself. And then, of course, if she's really truly vain, shout out to the lesbians out there, because you're so into yourself, you'd rather deal with someone that's similar to yourself, i.e., another female. So there's those two scenarios that I'm kind of looking into when that occurs. But at the at the end of the day, what it really is she has submitted to else. She was submitting to you. You were the man. You were the alpha. You were her alpha. But for whatever reason, she has now made the conscious decision to now no longer submit to you as the alpha, but she has submitted to other. And if you know anything about women, women are actually uh, remember there's balance here. So women are seen as natural nurturers, but they're also natural abusers. So it's the yin yang of that. So yes, women are natural nurturers, but they are also abusers. You know, by far they are the number one abuser and murderer of children, the most innocent of us. So that in itself is saying just that, or supports at least that. And there is that part of them where women abuse, or women punish, let's say it like that, failure. So imagine, like, if she has submitted to another alpha, you are now a failure in her eyes. So she will immediately move to punish you. She will immediately do things to emasculate you that she never did before. I'm talking about, like, she'll be so out of pocket, you'll be like, what the fuck is going on? Like, it'll literally make you, like, contemplate certain bodily harm. Like, she will do stuff, say stuff so out of pocket that it's like you see some of these stories and headlines on a guy doing something to his to his ex, or to his chick, or new ex, or his chick. And one of the first things I kind of think about, because people always see the woman as the victim, right? But guys, unless something's mentally wrong with him, which, mind you, if something is mentally wrong with him, she's with him for a reason. So that goes back to that reasons broadcast. But if he's sound, if even if I've met the guy and I'm like, okay, he didn't seem crazy. He didn't seem like he was capable of doing this. This actually ironically pertains to my ex's friend that I was talking to in a prior podcast. Remember I said something happened in a relationship, the cops are called and all that stuff. Well, I'm like, okay, I met this individual. I didn't know him on a personal level like that. I was never friends with him, but like I was able to get from him, okay, yeah, he's a bit beta. I'm trying to be polite here. I'm trying to be polite here. Um, by saying he's a bit beta, if I'm just being honest, he was beta. But I was like, okay, he didn't strike me at that as that type at all. So I immediately, when I was told certain things about that situation, I like it wasn't even like I had to really even think about it. I just kind of plugged that into my simulation in my mind, and what immediately popped out was, what the fuck did she do? Because I was like, he was not the type of dude that would just do that unprovoked. Which, mind you, I was never told what she did. I never found out, or it never came to light what she did. Which, of course, when it comes to abuse, especially spousal abuse, everyone already knows. Male spousal abuse tends to be physical, and it's always called out. No one condones it at all, legally or socially. But female spousal abuse, however, is well, one, try to call the cops on your wife because she's emasculating you. Good luck with that. She could absolutely. I'm talking about you're in public and she is just like spilling all the beans, like just completely dismantling your manhood verbally. Who, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you're gonna call the cops on that? I mean, you could. I mean, if you do call the cops, like, even the people around you are just like, they're gonna be so perplexed at what's going on. They're gonna be like, oh wow, she is. Well, one, they already know she's a low tier female just because of what she's doing. Because if you're that type of woman, if you do that in public, I'm just gonna tell you right now, anybody that witnesses that, anybody that finds out you did that in public, especially if it's a potential suitor in the future, yeah, he's gonna be like, yeah, you're one of those women, and we're gonna put you over there in the bin of women to never get too serious with, because that type of behavior, that type of shit right there is intolerable. Because there is no, like, how do you combat that? I'm not gonna sit here and argue with you. I'm not gonna do that. That's a mental strain. Women love arguing, by the way, so she might actually get off on that. She might actually be doing that because she wants to argue. Which is another thing I talked about. Women do that. They want the argument to happen, and yeah, there's no way to properly combat that other than to simply leave, just to not deal with it altogether. And women know that, which is why women tend to try to keep it under wraps until they got some type of leverage, i.e., marriage or a child with the man, and then they proceed to jab that knife in between the ribs and the back of that man and twist it best they can, because they what they're really trying to do is just punish him because he didn't do something she really wanted him to do, right? So he's a failure. But that type of disrespectful behavior is intolerable, especially when the emasculation of it. So the only thing you can do is leave, because you can't physically do to her what you would do to another man, because other men have common sense of knowing, yeah, you do that to another man, you're getting there's a fight about to happen right now. You're about to get it. That guy's coming for you. And yes, the law might get called, because mind you, if people see this in public, you see a guy disrespect another guy, as long as no one's getting shot or something like that, or there aren't weapons involved, or someone's life is like truly, truly in danger. Now, mind you, you can kill someone with your bare hands, but like most of the time, you're just trying to teach that guy a lesson. Like, hey, you crossed the line. This is the punishment for that. You're not trying to kill him. You're just trying to punish him for disrespecting you. And if there's observers nearby, especially guys, we'll just step back and we'll just watch it. Like, hey, bro, just disrespected him, and there's a fight about to happen. No harm, no foul. This is a part of nature. So let the fight happen. The victor is the victor. No permanent damage done. All right, move on. That's how things occur, at least in male society. That's how it is. That's in the hierarchy. No cops need to be called at all. But the person disrespecting you as a female, yeah, you you can't react that way because then the cops get called, and then now you'll have to constantly have to tell why you did what you did. If she did not have a weapon, if she wasn't lunging at you, if your life wasn't in danger, now you're in the wrong. You see, even though we both know that this situation will be seen totally differently if she was a male. You see, so there's that social component. So that's why the only way to really combat it is to leave. You can't tolerate that. It's intolerable. It literally will change the way you are. I see men in those relationships. Yes, they were beta already, but it literally it's like a fungus or something slowly eroding you or just digesting you from the inside out until you're just a shell of yourself. That's how that'll be if you think you're going to stay around for that. Remember how I talked about how I was so sickly the last 2 years? The weight gain, the mental fog that I was going through. Hell, my own drive. Like I've finally gotten back to at least hell. I'm not 100% yet, but I've gotten back at least 60% of it because it was just not there. Like it just I was like, yo, what the hell is going on? I was not myself at all. So it was a misdiagnosis on my part. The situation was much more dire and much different than what I thought it was. It wasn't just the regular ups and downs in a relationship. No, it was someone already made a decision that they were gonna leave the relationship, but they still wanted to hang around for the benefits of the relationship, and that's what that was. It wasn't oh, they're just throwing a fit, because I thought it was them just throwing a fit because this is female nature. Things are never perfect. um let me do what I got to do to right the ship. Okay, I haven't done it, maybe because I'm working, I'm grinding. Okay, I haven't taken her shopping and stuff like that, even though she doesn't, when I want to take her shopping or try to take her shopping, she declines. But I'm like, hey, like maybe it's that, maybe it's this. So I was scrambling to look for a solution, thinking it's regular relationship stuff all the time, and eventually coming to the conclusion after doing more digging and probing, realizing it actually was a lot more terminal than I thought it was. It was completely different than what I thought it was. I misdiagnosed it. Symptoms were similar. There were some little subtle differences, like that whole friendshipping thing, the 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 um the uh the friend zoning type behavior, the the roommating behavior, the willingness to express interest in other males in your presence, which is a disrespectful thing women do. Um, Also emasculating, because remember, like I said, if she's already made that decision, she's immediately going to move to punish you. You're going to be a source of punishment, even if she relies on you. You can absolutely be the thing she is relying on for survival. But if she has already submitted to another alpha and she truly desires another alpha, she is going to she can't resist. Remember, it's part of her nature. She is going to punish you in little subtle, emasculating, disrespectful ways, and it'll be nonstop because she just can't resist. She can't resist, and she'll actually get satisfaction out of it. That's one of the reasons why she can't exist, because she actually does get satisfaction out of punishing a failure, i.e., being you. So I guess if I were to take something away from this broadcast, it's understanding that properly diagnosing the situation and being aware of what's really going on and being willing, you got to do some digging. Do your digging. Find the proof you need. Remember how I was talking about trust. I need proof. I Yes, I can deduce things. I can know something's not right because of the way someone acts, but I need something tangible. I do. I prefer it that way. Even though, like, now, mind you, if it's just constant, nonstop emasculating and disrespect and the whole friend zoning, roommating behavior, okay, that in itself is proof. That's social proof for sure. But like, okay, and now you start looking for tangible proof as well, physical, tangible proof, because push comes to shove, there could be something that happens later where you try to say what happens. The individual that you were in the relationship with will lie to say that's actually wasn't what it was, and then something weird can happen where you're made to be you could be made to be seen as being crazy, and or you might even dip back into, you know what, I might have had it wrong, because that person will proceed to lie because they assume or know you don't have proof or physical proof, proper proof, despite their behavior at the moment. They will completely downplay their behavior, by the way. And that could actually lead to mishappen things mishappening in the future, which is why that tangible proof is important, because you can always, if that happens in the future, you keep yourself from going back down that rabbit hole. Like, nah, I remember you and I know how you are. Here's that physical proof to remind me of it. It wasn't just my mind. I'm not crazy. I didn't misinterpret it. I didn't take it out of context. No, I actually have tangible proof to constantly remind me that that is what occurred. It was what it was. So, because they're going to constantly try to manipulate you, and of course the go-to for that is lying, deception, that kind of stuff. Plus, that individual has to have a life of their own, so they would like it better if they had somebody that they can easily disprove their nature. Meaning, if you have a deceitful liar, they would like it better if they can just say, "Oh my God, they can't prove anything, so they were just lying," and then they'll just say that you were the liar in that situation. Now, mind you, their outcomes in life are absolutely going to support what you already know, because deceitful liars can only get but so far in not just relationships, but with certain types of people in life, meaning you're barred from certain levels of society in life, typically the higher tiers, unless you run like a Theranos FTX level scam and you're able to get away with it, meaning you don't get caught, then you got the chance or opportunity, and or you have in a society that supports you, you know, like a, what is it, like a Epstein type deal. But aside from those situations, it's very unlikely that you'll even reach that type of level or even get close to it. It'll be a constant revolving door of people coming in and out of your life, because it's part of your nature to lie and deceive. And people have that visceral response to being deceived, which is very strong and powerful. So that's actually one of those signs of a type of individual. If they constantly have a revolving door of people coming in and out of their life, it's for a reason. And you just have to find out for certain before something drastic happens, like the trap a nigga baby or something like that. It's best to find out as soon as possible. It's best to be on your heels, always be skeptical. Um, Never believe what someone just says, and also be mindful of the people that are how can I say it, that are offended that you don't just believe what they say. Because I can say something, and I know that someone either took it the wrong way or they don't believe me, and I'm actually okay with that, because it's, I could be lying in their eyes, and I understand that. I absolutely understand it. I don't get offended at that at all, because I understand. They probably had been lied to in the past. So they know better than to just believe what people say. I hear what you said. Like when people talk to me, they say something to me. Um, of course, oftentimes trying to flatter themselves, trying to make themselves seem as amazing as possible. Okay, I already know that there's going to be some, you know, there's going to be some excessiveness there, some grandiose, stuff going on there. I get that. They're trying to flatter me. They're trying to make themselves seem as nice, as good as possible. I get that. That's part, that's what people do. But at the same time, okay, if you're offended because I don't just straight up believe everything you just said, that's a red flag. Because I'm not going to assume you're just going to believe everything I say. Even right now, even as you're listening to this video, I'm not going to be offended at all if you don't believe anything I'm saying. Not at all. Which is why I always tell you, this is information. Go get to it. Do your own research. Go do that. Go look it up. This has probably already occurred in your life and it actually helped you put two and two together. Now, you can be one of those people that doesn't want to acknowledge it for whatever reason because you got your own issues you want to deal with and you don't want to admit to certain things in your life. That's completely fine. But what you cannot say is you cannot feign ignorance. You cannot say someone didn't tell you, someone didn't warn you about what is going on or what is out there. You can't. It's absolutely there. It's just like women talking about, oh my God, I didn't know that's what guys wanted. They are lying every time they say that because you look online. Mind you, we're in the age of internet. All guys online are like, it's a nonstop thing of guys talking about how women are, what they want out of a spouse. Why can't I just do this? Why can't I do that? Which oftentimes is betas, by the way. But it's a nonstop drum beat of what guys want. You can literally ask a guy, the guy that you're dating, what he wants. Like you can literally do that. All the guys that you've been with, whether you were dating them or whether you were just letting them bust it down, you're gonna ask them. It's literally that simple. So when you hear someone say something as stupid as I don't know what guys want, what men want. Now, if it's coming from she doesn't know what the men that she has yet to deal with want, meaning the alphas, the really masculine men, the real men, not the betas, because mind you, most like I said, most guys today are beta. So she knows what the betas want, and to be honest, most women only qualify for those guys. Now it's the women that actually have the opportunity to qualify for an actual real man, a real guy, the one that aren't beta. Now those are the ones. Now that I will genuinely acknowledge. Now the ones that come from that perspective, I will acknowledge that. Okay, she might not know what those guys want because I'm not gonna lie, I don't say everything. I don't like you know putting all my thoughts out there. It's actually in the 48 Laws of Power, actually. And I think the Strategies of War as well. Yeah, I don't like putting all my thoughts out there. I don't like telling everybody how to, all the keys of maneuvering me. No, it's not. That's not the way to do it. Now there are generalities. Like there's general ways of dealing with people. There's general ways of dealing with that type of man, which is why I'm able to, talk about some of the real stuff, kind of some of the signs of, you know, whether or not that guy is real, whether or not that woman is real, that type of stuff. There are signs of that. But at the same time, if you know something's different, okay, I know what I desire this type of man, but you just don't know where that guy is, how to get around him, the signs of whether or not, because mind you, all the betas are trying to act like they are that type of guy. All of them are trying to because they know that's what women want. So they all try. So all the betas are trying to act alpha. But remember, like most women qualify for the beta. So I mean, y'all, that's literally what y'all raise. Shout out to the single moms out there. That's literally what y'all raise. You were given the option of what you want, and that's literally what y'all make. It's betas, and most of y'all qualify for the beta. That's just what it is. And guess what? The betas qualify for you. So water seeks its own level, but it's only the individuals where they might not come from a certain background, but they have to an extent. So to an extent, they they might not have come from a certain background or whatever, but they see things. They acknowledge where they want to be in life. They acknowledge that they wish and desire to surpass their parents and everyone around them, and to seek a higher level of being in life. And it's eventually, they figure out how to maneuver there. That's why it's so rare to have somebody share with you the proper way of maneuvering things, the way of the thought process of individuals at that level. Shout out to Jason Black. So it's rare that you have individuals like that are willing to kind of let you peep in and see how things really are, and give you a little bit of the game that you really need, even if you were on par, or even if you were on track to figure it out for yourself. It always helps to have it sooner, because then you'll make fewer mistakes in your own life. So this one has been a bit long. I even have more. If you can be surprised, there's a lot more into this. I'm gonna do a lot more self-reflection type stuff. Talking about my relationship, of course. The cross. This part of the crossover. I'll also refer to that star-crossed. But yeah, this is just information, and if you take anything from this at all, it would be to reflect. Always self-reflect. That's one of the things I talked about prior. I'm always like looking back into myself. Did I do something wrong? Could I have done something better? I'm always constantly reflecting. And it's one of those things it's one of those things where you have to do that, and it's a very important part of you developing it as an individual, because that's actually where a lot of people get stuck. They don't know themselves. And if you don't know yourself, there's a couple things that will happen. One, you won't be able to control your reactions. You'll do something that'll fuck you up in the future, if it hasn't already fucked you up, because you don't know yourself. You don't know how you react. You don't know how people tick you off. Like, I don't know if you know this, there are people, certain individuals, they know how to push your buttons. If you don't know what pushes your buttons, or if you don't know how to push your own buttons, you won't be able to spot that. You won't be able to spot whether or not someone's doing it intentionally. For example, I don't like it when people move my stuff around. If I tell someone that, I express that, I know why I do that. There is a I need control of that part of me. I need that control. I mean, everyone to an extent needs that control, but at the same time, it's more so on memory. I remember where everything is. I put everything where I put it for a reason. There's a purpose to my logic, to my insanity, right? So when someone knows this and they intentionally are moving my stuff around, I know it's them trying to do stuff. It's them fucking with me. You see what I'm saying? But because I'm aware of that, I'm aware of one myself, and I'm aware that I've told them numerous times not to do this very thing, and they consistently do it. You see what I'm saying? You put two and two together. Whereas if you don't know yourself and you're just constantly expressing, like, oh, can you please stop moving my stuff? Like, oh, baby, you moved my stuff again. Like, come on now. And you're kind of treating it like, it's just a regular occurrence. It's not just a regular occurrence. That's them fucking with you. You see what I'm saying? That's them ticking you off, because eventually enough of that happening, and you will eventually snap. There will be that day where one of too many things happen, and that day, like, stop moving my shit. You'll snap. And then, of course, that, depending on the individual you're dealing with, that's what they wanted. That's what they wanted all along. They wanted you to snap. They wanted you to snap, because that shows weakness in yourself. So, as always, do your self reflecting. It won't be perfect. You gotta know how to quiet the noise. The reflection will never be perfect, not always. Might be some blurriness. There's life, the noise of life is there, so you gotta quiet that. You gotta focus a bit. Um, One of the things I learned about myself is I had always, since I was younger, I have found this out actually a year or two ago. I had been, for the longest, um, been meditating. I didn't call it meditation. To me, it was just me collecting my thoughts. It was me, in a way, rebooting myself. I had just inherently been doing that all my life. And it wasn't until like I really looked into what meditation was, and I was like, well, wait a second, I actually do that already. So, there's certain things that I inherently already do, that so I have an advantage over some individuals, that, and which, like I said, because I'm aware of myself, I can acknowledge that. So I'm able to share with you, hey, you have to know how to, how to focus. Meditation is one of those things that helps people do that. And then you can better quiet the noise. You can get a better reflection and self-reflect, and even your memory, you can better remember things because now you remember why you felt a certain way because you're aware of yourself. You're aware of what would make you feel that way. So self-reflection is very important. Like if I were to expand on that, I could expand a lot on that, which I most likely will in a next prior video. But for now, I'm gonna end it here. I've been on here for over an hour. That's long enough. So let me get back to the little one because she just wants to play with me, and she has been wanting to play with me. But I had to get this thought out there. More on this later, for sure. Definitely look forward to more of these reflection crossovers for sure. But this is just information. You already know what to do with that.
Don't let me down, man. If you let me down, I don't know what I'd do.
But thank you for watching. Thank you for watching again. This is the crossover, and God, if you have really been here this long, yeah, you definitely got something out of this one for sure. Um, I will definitely be coming back to this one. I have a lot of future reflections as well, that I'm going to be doing. Like I said, there will be more. There will be more. So stay tuned. Until next time.
お前はもう